You may have noticed when we were putting the rudder in that the two starboard inner counter timbers were broken. Again, not being careful. So again, using rubbing alcohol at 90%, we carefully took them out, soaked them, took about an hour and a half, and a little bit of prying and persuasion, and we took them out and we cut two new replacements and be a little more careful. I think what I'll do is put a temporary piece of wood across the top to give it a little more strength. These are the two pieces that came out. They broke right off the edge here where they would be most vulnerable. So they came out intact. Again, the beauty of using rubbing alcohol, which does dissolve the PVA and allows you to correct these errors when they take place. The other addition I made is the tiller, taken straight off the book. I didn't go through the making of this. It's relatively simple. It can come in and out, and we'll decide if we're going to use the wheel or not. Most probably we will be using the wheel, but the tiller will be part of the mechanism anyway. And again, how beautifully she works. Now we've reached the time to continue the outside strakes. We've put the black strake in, which is 23, so now we're going to put in strake number 24. And of course that means that we're now going to check the gun ports to make sure that they're all correctly set. And before I'm even starting, I know I'm going to find errors. This is very early on in the build, and I know there was a big question whether I should cut the gun port sills now or wait until later when the frames are a little more stable. Plus, I was still had a learning process of lining things up, so I'm under no illusion that this thing is going to be perfect. The first thing we had to do was remount the model back on the building board, and that meant that the stern support had to be moved back. Remember that the support was holding the stern post in place. There was no modification needed to the support at the bow of the boat. So we start off with how do we do the measurements so that they're exactly as the plan. We're going to use the vernier caliper, except this time we're going to put it upside down, because if you put it upside down, you can get the point. You can lay it flat and the point will give you the exact mark on the model. Some calipers come with a base, and that means it does not have the piece that goes down the back, and that gives you a solid base in which to take the measurement and work as a height gauge. But before we do all that, the first thing we have to make sure is that the model has been remounted back on the building board and is level on both sides. So we take the caliper, put it on the starboard side and on the port side, and then we do this at various points in the model and make sure it's level. To make sure that everything is very accurate, we have the keel, and we put the ruler on the keel. And I know in the past, when I'm taking measurements, these things have moved. So I have some nice heavy blocks here that will hold it in place. So now all we need to do is to come, line the bottom of the caliper up and line the bottom of the sill up. This will give us the height of the lower sill, and then we do the same thing on the other side, and now go to the model and check it. So we're flat on the bottom, and there we go. And as you can see, this one is slightly off. I'm not going to make you go through all of them in the same manner, just to state that if you look closely at each one, you will see I've drawn lines where the corrections are. And every single one of them needs to be adjusted. So now the challenge is, do I re-establish these lines, take out the piece here and re-establish the bottom, or do I simply cut the piece down. So here's my double standard again. If you're not going to see it, does it really matter? It's going to be a real pain in the ass to take these down, and the chance of damaging a part of the model I think is pretty high. So I'm going to cheat, knowing that I've learned a lesson and it's not going to be repeated in the next model. And you will know, and I will know, but nobody else is going to know. So I'm simply going to take them down where it's really too close to the line. Like in this case, I will redo the sill. But that's the decision I've made. To get to the line, the first thing we'll do is use a sharp chisel and pull it down. Then we might use a rough file, and then finally we go back to the old boards which we used to use, which is a piece of sandpaper stuck to a very flat board. And this makes sure that what we're sanding ends up being extremely level. Sometimes it can be very difficult to see what you're sanding, so it pays just to put some pencil on the piece and then sand. And you can see all this pencil has come off, and there's just a little edge here, so that edge needs to come down. In the case of the port side, we actually have to build the pieces up slightly. Certainly the first 3 pieces. The rest of them, strangely enough, are perfect. So that's quite a relief. The final check is to put the French ruler on it and make sure that everything flows beautifully from one window to another. And then you have a little high spot. Like here, it shows up very easily. And the only place that won't work is on the aft gun port. Now that we've got all the gun ports level and parallel with each other, it's time to go to the back shop and make up some planks. We've cut them quite wide. They are 3 inches in thickness, but we have quite a few that taper up to the bottom of the gun port. So this should be more than enough stock to plank the outside of the model. More errors. Here are the hose hole, and this line on both sides is supposed to be the center. So the best way to fix that problem is to put some dowels and fill these holes and re-drill them. It's not as bad as it seems, because when we plank over it, you won't see the fill piece. Now that they are completely filled in, I'm afraid I've ignored some of the advice that David made in the book, which is not to drill the holes. Since I already screwed up, one could argue that I have license to do whatever is necessary to recover from the error. And so what I did is I marked the holes exactly with a pin, then drilled the hole with a very fine drill, which in case I got anything wrong, I could recover, and then slowly increase the size of the hole until at the end of the day, I have a file, and I drilled the holes up to 7 inches and went up to the 8 inches using the file. So that's the 8-inch mark right there. So we're recovered. And when we plank these off, that mistake is going to disappear forever. Now it's time to start the upper planking above the black strake. So we're going to number 24, and we're going to bend this piece around. This is 3.5 inches at the bow, and it seems to taper down to 3 inches as we go along. For many years I'd seen this tool and was always fascinated, never bought it. Made up all my jigs, which you've seen me use many times. And then the other day, it was on sale, and I said, why the hell not? And I've actually used it quite a few times, and it's very useful because you can put it on almost any form, as I did in this case, and got the shape, and then went on my old jig and moved it around until I got the shape on this form that matched my jig, and just put some lines on it, and that allowed me to find the actual perfect place to put the strake on and get the bend. And then just put the blow dryer on it. We've almost forgotten that we have this gun port in the bow to cut out. So I've got it all marked out, and we'll cut it out now. We've cut the first piece and bent it into shape, and again you can see it fits beautifully, no stress on the model. So we just need to pencil in the top and bottom and stick the first piece. You'll notice we put 2 starter holes just to make it easy when we come to actually opening up the holes. We need to pay particular attention to spots where the strakes join below. So if you just put there, you'll notice it's coming down like that. And when we pull it down, we don't get a nice tight fit. So to help that, this rasp will help make the curve a little easier. It's a very useful rasp. So taking down just a little bit on this side and flattening this side. And then what that gives us on the top is a nice clean line. The other little thing is clamping is now becoming more challenging. So we've made up these little wooden clamps. And if you can see, there's a little angle on it. So what it does is if I want to pull this down, so I have nothing to clamp below it. That means I have to push it down. I can push that down and then clamp the piece on top of it. Like that. And that's pulled the piece right down into the 23 and 24. Get a nice tight join. So I have a few of those that I'll use to pull the pieces down. Just to go through the process with you, we're bending the fourth piece of strake 24 in place, and we're using the heat gun to put it in place. We're pushing the pieces down, and we let that set for a while. I'll heat it once more, just a little bit, to make sure that I lock in the bend. And then we come at the back here and pencil in the cutout. And we'll go on the bandsaw and cut that piece out. Now that strake 24 is all installed and we've cleaned up the bottom of the gun ports, we're going to clean up the top of the gun ports, because some of the top of the sills have come off, and that's just a natural process. In the early days I would try my best to stick them at the time, and then I realized I was just wasting my time. So we're going to sort them all out. They're all 27 inches in height, except this one in the stern, which is actually 30 inches. Once that is done, we're going to put the shear strake, which is number 29, on, and then divide up the space so that the strakes that go between 24 and 29 are all equal, and you get a nice clean line. And we can just go through. This one is too high. This one is too high. Well, this one is out. This one is too high. This one is spot on. At least I got one right. That's almost spot on. Too high. Too high. Too high. Too high. Spot on. The solution is going to be simple. Just add on a piece below it at this stage, and sand it and make sure it's square. Having the Jim Barnes desktop sander just makes this task so easy. You can set the angle, come to the side, and mark the piece, and it's done. Perhaps one of the most visually important aspects of any model are the gun ports, and so it's very important that we get them almost identical, obviously identical if possible, and the heights are very important, and this rasp has turned out to be very useful in sanding the pieces and getting a nice flat surface. The most forward gun port is now complete, set and checked. We'll move and do the port side. I won't go through that with you. And then in the next video, we'll look at installing the shear strake. It's the 7th of December, and I know I'm not going to get a chance to do another video before now on the New Year, certainly not between now and Christmas. So I'd just like to take this moment to thank all of those who have helped me over the years. Certainly the Ship Model Society of New Jersey, very active group, and in England, the Society of Model Shipwrights, and of course my main modeling group, my Steadfast, the Nautical Research Guild, and the forum sites on all of them You've all been so special, and I thank you for sharing and giving feedback, in some cases honest criticism of some of the work I've done. I'd also like to especially thank Greg Herbert, who has never missed an opportunity when I've asked for help to help steer me down the correct path, so my dear old ship, the HMS Thorn, doesn't sink while on the way to her first launch. And then I hope all of you have a wonderful Christmas. As many of you know, I've already received my Christmas gift, this wonderful gift from my wife. I came a little early. Santa's sleigh was quite fast this year. So I hope you're as lucky as I am. And we'll see you in the new year. And the most important thing to remember in this wonderful season of giving is to keep modeling.